The United Kingdom's exit from the European Union on January 31st in 2020 marked a seismic shift in its relationship with the continent. Beyond the economic and political ramifications, the departure also had a direct impact on the 73 British members of the European Parliament, the so-called MEPs. And this video explores the fate of those MEPs, the impact on the European Parliament, and the broader implications of their absence, including the controversial topic of their pensions. The most immediate consequence of Brexit was the loss of all 73 British seats in the European Parliament. This significant change in composition triggered a reallocation of seats among remaining member states. The number of seats each country holds is roughly proportional to its population, and the departure of a large member like the UK necessitated a reshuffling. 27 seats were distributed among 14 member states, with larger countries like France, Spain, and Italy gaining the most. This shift in representation subtly altered the power dynamics within the parliament, potentially benefiting countries that had previously advocated for stronger EU integration. While British MEPs officially ceased to be members of the European Parliament by the end of January 2020, a short grace period was negotiated as part of the withdrawal agreement. The temporary period, lasting a few months, allowed for a smooth transition. British MEPs retained limited access to Parliament buildings, administrative support, and official email addresses during this time. This period also provided an opportunity for them to wind down their offices, finalize ongoing projects, and potentially assist with the repatriation of UK-specific legislative matters. And the departure of British MEPs also impacted the political balance within the European Parliament. Prior to Brexit, British representation leaned towards the centre-left of the political spectrum. This included members from the Labour Party, the Liberal Democrats, and the Scottish National Party. Their absence weakened the centre-left bloc, potentially allowing for a relative strengthening of the centre-right and Eurosceptic groups within the parliament, and this shift in balance could have implications for future EU legislation and policy direction. With the end of their terms as MEPs, British representatives faced a range of options. Some opted to return to national politics, seeking seats within the UK Parliament or Scottish and Welsh devolved assemblies. Others chose to pursue careers outside of politics, leveraging their experience and expertise in international affairs, advocacy, or business. A few former MEPs transitioned into academia or non-profit organizations. Beyond the immediate political consequences, the departure of British MEPs also represented a loss of valuable expertise and experience within the European Parliament. Many former MEPs had served for multiple terms, developing a deep understanding of EU institutions and procedures. They also brought a unique perspective, representing the interests and concerns of a large and historically significant member state. Their absence has the potential to create a knowledge gap within the Parliament, particularly regarding UK-specific issues. But they got less important as well. The situation surrounding who pays the pensions for British MEPs after Brexit is a bit complex. MEP pensions are funded by the European Union through a dedicated pension scheme. This scheme is generally considered generous, offering a percentage of an MEP's salary for each year served. It's important to note that the specific pension scheme for MEPs introduced in 1989 was closed to new members in 2009, and this means that any British MEP who joined after 2009 wouldn't be eligible for the traditional EU pension. However, British MEPs who were members before the 2009 closure would still be entitled to their pensions under the original scheme. The EU would continue to be responsible for funding these pensions. The withdrawal agreement negotiated during Brexit included some transitional support for British MEPs. This might have covered some pension-related costs for a limited period after their departure. However, details on the specifics of this support are not widely publicized. There will probably still be discussions behind closed doors, and long-term implications of British MEP pensions is something we probably won't hear, because the pensions, as I said, were in the past calculated as a percentage, and then when the scheme was closed, all of them are still eligible for this part. But what happens to the others that joined after 2009, where now the British government is responsible? And the whole scheme has caused controversy, particularly among those who view it as unfair for British MEPs to continue receiving benefits from the EU after the UK's departure. And negotiations around the withdrawal agreement addressed this issue to some extent, with British MEPs receiving transitional support for the limited period, as I said. But what will happen to them from the British side in the long term is something that I cannot easily find. But some of them will be paid by the EU still because of the old scheme. And that is something that I haven't checked when Farage joined, by the way. He must be a part of the old scheme, by the way. But MEP pensions in the EU are a benefit provided to former members of the European Parliament upon retirement. And it's quite complicated. As I said, the pension amount is calculated as a percentage of an MEP's salary for each year they fully served in office. And the specific percentage varies slightly, but it's typically around 3.5%. And there's also a maximum limit on the total pension an MEP can receive, and this is usually around 70% of an MEP's salary. Pensions even consider partial service, and for months served beyond a full year, there's often a proportional addition based on 1/12 of the yearly amount. The cost of these pensions is borne entirely by the European Union budget, and this means it's funded by contributions from all member states. Former MEPs typically need to reach a specific age, which is often around 63, to qualify for the full pension. An important note is that there were different pension schemes for MEPs over time. And I talked about the generous scheme that was from 1989 to 2009, and that is gone for everyone who thinks about going to the parliament now. If you just want to go for pensions, that's not the part anymore. But I still think it's a generous one. In the past, there was always a talk also here in Germany about if you want to get rid of a politician, send him to Europe, because even then, at that time, they didn't understand how all the thing really worked. But it was like getting rid of someone who annoys you, or like as a bonus system for someone because an MEP earns a lot more than an MP here. And the pension will be higher, of course, for an MEP than for an MP. But they still have to work on the transparency there. But today, people have understood that going to Europe and the European Parliament is an important thing. But the exit of the British MEPs from the European Parliament marked a significant turning point in the UK's relationship with the EU. It not only reduced the British influence within the institution, but also reshaped the political landscape. And while some former MEPs have found new roles, the loss of expertise and the shift in power dynamics will likely have long-term consequences for both the UK and the EU as a whole. And the controversy surrounding their pensions adds another layer of complexity to the story of their departure. But they will probably, with some exceptions like the UKIP guys in the parliament, will have a deeper understanding what the EU stands for. And those people will, in most cases, will not have voted for Brexit because they understood what they are losing. Nevertheless, we will definitely hear about this from time to time again. I mean, Farage was in the news again about this pension stuff again. And I don't think that is over. But nevertheless, if you want to see something else, the next video is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.